To catch everybody up who doesn't spend their life online, there has been a bit of a kerfuffle happening recently. Taylor Swift has come under hot water because of her friendship with Bryony somebody who liked a Donald Trump post on Instagram and then had to quickly unlike that, and then came out with this statement online, kind of shading people, calling everybody a hater. To be a hater as an adult, you have to have some deep-rooted issues you refuse to heal from childhood. There's no reason your brain is fully developed and you hate to see others doing well. She also asked for compassion during this time. And then Trump made this tweet endorsing Bryony saying how amazing she was. The important thing to note here is that she didn't denounce this endorsement. But oh no, Taylor Swift publicly endorsed Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. She stated her reasons why and encouraged people to do their research and to register to vote. And then Trump came out with this tweet saying, "I hate Taylor Swift." All caps. Very mature.
All caps and exclamation marks don't mean anything anymore. That's just the way he's just yelling out of a car window.
Now here's where you need to take things with a grain of salt, because this is from the Daily Mail and journalistic integrity who? But a source close to Bryony apparently said she does not believe in hate in any form and loves Taylor so much. This shook her to her core. But then they added, this doesn't mean she's suddenly voting Kamala. It's just made her more aware of supporting him so publicly. So I did my best trash panda impression and I've been scurrying through the internet trying to find if she is actually publicly Republican or anything around her views so we can actually figure out exactly where she stands. However, there are definitely people who like to keep their political leanings close to their chest. And in my opinion, a lot of the times it's because they lean a bit more conservative, but that's just my opinion. But I did find this entire Reddit group which was entirely dedicated to hating on Bryony Mahomes. Not for anything like radical that she's done or anything terrible that she's done, no, for the way that she looks, for calling her a clout chaser, for tearing apart literally everything about him. Oh my goodness, when people start doing this, we are just eradicating all the feminist progress. Critique people for their actions and words, not for the way that they look. But herein lies the real question here. Can you be friends with your political foe? I'm not on about disagreeing about small things, I'm on about big, huge, fundamental moral differences when it comes to how people should be treated. The issues on people's moral standing, especially as political parties have gotten more outspoken and extreme, especially in the USA with Trump's racist, xenophobic, sexist, transphobic messaging for many years now. The Overton window for US elections and Congress has actually crept further and further right the more the years have gone on. Can, or the question really is, should a friendship be able to flourish if you are political foes? By definition, in classic essayist style, friendship is a close relationship between two or more people who care about and support each other. It is built on trust, honesty, and mutual respect. Friends often share common interests and experiences and enjoy spending time together. Should you respect someone who believes that poor people deserve to suffer? Can you respect someone who believes that trans people are trying to brainwash children? Can you break bread and form a close bond with someone who is happy to dehumanize people based on their sexual orientation or the color of their skin? Celebrities still matter. Being detached from politics just shows privilege. As much as people like to speculate that celebrities no longer matter in this world, incidents like this absolutely show that they do. And yes, even if you clicked on this video with the sole intent of leaving a hate comment, it shows that you care. You're grumpy, but you care. As has been proven by Taylor Swift, telling her fans to vote has actually had an impact on registration numbers. Her story post endorsing Kamala Harris and Tim Walz with the link to register to vote drew 405,999 clicks on just her link to the website. And no, that doesn't mean everybody who clicked on that link actually enrolled to vote. On the day that she made that post, 35,252 people enrolled to vote, which is the most since 2020, the organisation said, and a 23% jump over last year. The number of 18-year-olds registered was more than double 2022. It's not clear exactly how many of the registrations were tied to Swift's Instagram. Vote.org reported a 1,226% jump in participation in the hour after her post. And this is where people say, oh, why are people so fickle about politics that they just vote the way that their celebrity wants them to? Well, especially young people actually vote the way that their parents want them to. Does that mean that they shouldn't be allowed to vote? Because in my opinion, the voting age should be lowered, but that is another video if you want me to dive into that. As this Pew Research Center survey of more than 1,800 teens aged 13 to 17 shows, roughly 8 in 10 parents who are Republican or lean towards the Republican Party, 81%, had teens who also identified as Republicans or leaned that way, and about 9 in 10 parents who were Democratic or lean Democratic, 89%, had teens who described themselves in the same way. But they also noted that people do change their affiliations with age, just like people do with religion. And the saying often goes that the older that you get, the more conservative you become, unless you're a millennial or a woman like me, because then it's Yes, celebrities are people with power, privilege, platform and money, but as I've said across my videos where we're unpacking the mistreatment of celebrities, especially when it comes to women, they are still people. Do you remember when Ellen, yes, gay icon Ellen, was at a Cowboys game with George Bush? The absolute betrayal that was felt by her audience at this moment is kind of similar to what we're going through today with this Taylor Swift and Bryony Mahomes situation.
Tweet that I loved. This person says, Ellen and George Bush together makes me have faith in America again. Just because I don't agree with someone on everything doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with them. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people that think the same way that you do. I mean be kind to everyone.
Working for Ellen DeGeneres.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
If you're not really caught up on the lore of Ellen, then I highly recommend you check out this video by Matt Baum or this video by Jessica Kelgan-Frozard. They're linked for you down below.
It doesn't matter. It does though?
And do you remember Harrison Butker? No? Let me remind you.
Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. Not the deadly sin sort of pride that has an entire month dedicated to it. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men.
You remember him now, don't you? Well, he's actually Travis Kelce's teammate. The same Travis Kelce who's in a relationship with independent billionaire with no children, Taylor Swift. So of course people wanted to know Travis's stance on this, because how could he work with someone that was so sexist and homophobic and transphobic?
He's treated friends and family that I've introduced to him with nothing but respect and kindness, and that's how he treats everyone. And I don't think that I should judge him by his views, especially his religious views, of how to go about life. That's just not who I am.
Well, this argument gets brought up a lot, doesn't it? How you treat the people in your life is a reflection of your true character, not the way that you vote. Now, as I've actually talked about in my brocialism video over here, I actually agree with this. However, there is quite a difference with how you treat people within your own life and then your views on them, because just because you may be nice to people outwardly, you know, if people bring their friends by or their partner by, doesn't actually mean that there's that respect there. And that's kind of the key difference here, because I personally don't believe that you can have love without respect, which is a video I am going to be making. I don't know when, but I'm working on 3 other videos at the moment right now. But I do agree with the sentiment that sometimes things are out of context, so that's why I listened to Harrison's entire speech, not just the viral clips. And his belief patterns are consistent. And it's the same reason why I always say people can make mistakes or whatever, but people can also learn, change and grow. It's when it comes to these repeated patterns of behavior. Say J.K. Rowling, for example, she considers herself to be a feminist. I don't. I consider her to be a transphobic, terrible person. But this is what I mean. She said some transphobic things. People were trying to educate her. People were pleading with her to change her mind. They were giving her resources, and she's been digging her heels in and just honestly getting far and far worse. To me, when someone is consistently racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, or whatever it may be, even after these kind corrections, these resources, this time to learn, that's a huge red flag to me. And come on, of course the Chiefs would be using their most high-profile players to come to the defense of their fellow player, because that's just basic PR.
Comments without really ever having met the guy. I think that the teammates' reactions with the Chiefs, Andy Reid's reaction, I think you learn more about people with who they are on a daily basis.
It often falls back on the, well, they treat me well argument, and sure, if you're a white, straight male, I'm sure that you'll be treated well by basically everybody who holds terrible beliefs. One thing which I really notice is how women are expected to be these role models for the way forward. They get picked apart ruthlessly from everything from the way that they look, to what they eat, to who they get seen with, to every little word they say getting combed through with a fine-tooth comb to purity check them, and to know their exact political stances on everything, again, to purity check them. But men get to say, everyone has their own views, they're nice in person, trust me bro, nah, I don't want to endorse anybody, that's not my place. And they get to stay apolitical or neutral, and this is shown as a sign of maturity, the fact that they're not bringing politics into everything and they can get along with everybody. And as people love to tell me in the comment section of this video, men are never meant to be role models, because we don't have this expectation of men in the same way that we do for women. In fact, we barely have any expectations on men. When it comes to moral character, I mean. The entire pressure is on women to be the measuring stick of moral purity and justice. And the pressure is on the women for who they're in a relationship with. The man reflects them, the man never reflects himself. Maybe it's because we're always looking for negative reasons as to why a woman got rich and famous, whereas for men, it's kind of the expectation that they're able to do that anyway. So they never get the scrutiny of sleeping their way to the top, or picked apart for every possible surgery they've had, or other such nonsense. Just a thought. But what about the common folk, you, me, and everybody else? When I told my Patreon that I wanted to work on this video, 2 different people from Germany and Poland respectively said that there's this saying which is similar to, if you're at a dinner table with 9 people and then a Nazi sits down, you're now at a dinner table with 10 Nazis. It's considered rude to talk about money, politics, or religion. Isn't it funny that those are the things which determine the kind of life you lead? Money determines where you live, where your kids can go to school, house insecurity, food insecurity, your transport, and if you're able to jet off on a holiday every year, or if your idea of a holiday is going from one job to then having to go to another job because you have to work multiple jobs to be able to afford to live. Religion determines the rules to which your life is led, even down to little things like if you're a Mormon, you're not allowed to drink coffee. Everybody else has been watching this show, right? Because I definitely have. All the way to bigger things like the clothing you can wear, the activities you do, and the beliefs you hold which directly impact the way that you vote. Politics isn't just about fixing potholes or should we plant this native tree or that native bush. It's far bigger than that and more pervasive throughout our entire lives. It's about determining the kind of education people's kids receive. It's determining the amount of money a retiree is able to get access to. It's the difference between policing houseless people and providing housing for them. It's the difference between allowing people bodily autonomy under medical guidance or forcing people to endure pain and potentially unaliving because their autonomy has been taken away. Politics determines the treatment of Indigenous people and the rights they have over their land and even their language, as has been hugely disturbed here in Aotearoa because of our right-leaning government. Trying to act like politics doesn't impact every aspect of our lives is a bit like Megara trying to say no to Hades after she sold her soul to him to save her scumbag of a boyfriend.
Aren't we forgetting one teensy-weensy but ever so crucial little tiny detail? I own you!
But as has been passed down through many generations, it is rude to talk about such nasty topics such as politics, religion, or money. But when your right to exist as your authentic self, your ability to afford food, your ability to be in a relationship with the person you love are being jeopardized, avoiding anything remotely related to politics is incredibly hard, if not impossible, to avoid in conversation. So you're stuck talking about the weather, but even that leads on to the climate crisis, which is again a political issue because some people still don't believe it's a thing. What are you meant to do when it's your family members, your in-laws, or your closest friends that you've had for many years that are actually politically opposed to you? Are you meant to just cut them off? Are you meant to say, oh yes, I'm going to join for Christmas dinner this year, but Uncle Ken better not be there, otherwise I'm not joining? Or are you meant to have conversations with these people and try to unpack why they started to think the way they do and provide them with resources? But then what if they're so far down the track that they're in the Q sphere and there's no talking them out of it? Every single case is different, and people online love to tell each other to just cut people out of their lives all the time, but that's not exactly the most practical option for many people. Some people get misinformed or misled, and they believe people like JD Vance because they're a politician, they're in a position of power, right? So of course you're meant to believe them. Look at the way JD Vance clings to the idea that Haitians are eating people's pets, even though it's all fabricated lies, because it serves his cause. There is so much pressure on the marginalized to grin and bear mistreatment from family members, from friends, from in-laws. And this is all done in the name of politeness, which I personally don't think is fair. It's all this tone policing nonsense. Also, are people expecting people to be polite and nice to family members who believe that their sexual orientation or gender is sick and wrong? And what are the people meant to do who have a very small network around them, don't actually have an online presence because they don't want to, as I know a number of you don't want to, or they live in a small town? Are they meant to just cut themselves off and become a hermit? Because otherwise you're seen as endorsing them. Because every situation is so different and everybody's lived experience is so different, I don't think I've got the right answers at all about what is the best way forward for people, because every situation is so nuanced. And then the other question comes up of how are you meant to change people's minds if you cut them off so you can't actually have these conversations with them any longer? Obviously, I have to state it here because otherwise people will misinterpret me. I'm not on about the pressure being on marginalized people to educate other people. I'm on about more privileged people to be the ones that need to be having these hard conversations and changing people's minds. And what about the people that you work with or work for or have an impact in your industry? Like, you may come across people that believe there are only two genders, or that black people are more dangerous, that's why they end up in prison all the time, clearly stating neither of which I agree with. Now, some of you may be saying, but you're not trans or black, so why should it matter? Just because something doesn't directly impact me doesn't mean that I believe people's human rights should be stripped away. The problem in these scenarios is you don't know what kind of person you're actually dealing with here. Are you dealing with someone that's just been misinformed and maybe the way that they were raised has still had an impact on their mind and they haven't questioned that stuff yet? Or are they the kind of person that's deeply transphobic, deeply racist, and they're very proud of that fact? The problem is you don't know unless you start asking questions. And I'm the annoying person that does like to ask those questions, but not everybody is like me. People don't even like to stand up for themselves a lot of the time, let alone for each other. Again, I have been that annoying person in the workplace. I've been on rainbow committees, I've been on sustainability committees. I am the one that people come to with their problems, as I've talked about before. Well, I used to be when I was working at a corporate job. Just start asking those probing questions as to why they're thinking the way that they do. Because if they're misinformed, then I can provide them with some information. And honestly, I'm actually going to recommend this channel once again to you called Intellectual Media, which breaks down a whole bunch of especially black history through the decades and the systemic racism and all of the issues which have actually come from it and still affect people to this day. And when it comes to transphobia, I have talked about so many different channels in the past, but I'll have some of them linked for you down below. My hope when it comes to these sorts of things is that people just don't know any better. And no, not everybody spends their time online like you or I do, so then they're not informed about as much stuff as us, you know, and they haven't questioned this stuff because they're dealing with other things. Everybody's got different lived experiences, like I say all the time. So I have to hold on to this obnoxious sense of hope which I have, which is probably dangerous because I like to think that everybody has the potential to be good. And yes, my outspokenness in every business setting has meant that I've been a bit of an enemy for the higher ups, but I just think like this.
What I hear when I'm being yelled at is people caring loudly at me.
But not everybody is a stroppy vocal Leslie Knope like me. But does because you work somewhere mean that you endorse where you work and the people that all work there? Because I've never felt that way, personally. I've appreciated a number of individuals there. I've appreciated a bunch of the company goals, but it doesn't mean that I'm aligned there. Heck, I'm not even aligned with Google when it comes to a number of things, as I've brought up across my videos. We also have to recognize when people do bring up an issue at work, when they are vocal, your neck is on the line. Not only your job, but your career. I've spoken in the past about my issue with the fact that I brought up a terrible thing which happened to me, and it meant I had a black mark against my name. Whilst I can't legally talk about it, the pettiness that people have is absolutely enabled and enhanced when they are in a position of power. And when you're in a position of power, you are also very well connected. And this especially impacts us here in Aotearoa because the saying goes is that we're all 2 degrees of separation, which means that you're just 2 social connections away from each other. Like, we moved to this new area, only know 2 people here. I went and got my haircut recently, said their name. Boom, the hairdresser already knew who they were. So it's potentially an opportunity ender, a job ender, or a career ender even, if you are outspoken against people who are in a position of power. And most people are not in a position to put their careers on the line. We are in a cost of living crisis dealing with AI hiring people terribly and ghost jobs. Expecting people to just up and quit where they work because the CEO is bad or their co-worker is bad or the company is doing some bad things isn't a very practical solution for people. What is a practical solution is, as I bring up all the time, to join a union or get a union started, because there is power in numbers. Unions make a huge difference, not only when it comes to pay parity for people, but also when it comes to actual inclusion within businesses and policy changes that get made within businesses. So this is why I always do encourage people to join unions. They make a massive difference. So then you alone are not sticking your neck out, it's everybody's taking a stance. And that's where more power comes in. As Robert Jones Jr. said, as famously gets misattributed to James Baldwin, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. Ooh, I know there's going to be a lot of comments and thoughts on this video, and I am very excited to hear them all down below. Hopefully you made it all the way to the end of the video before commenting, because like I said, everyone's got a different lived experience. Everything is so individual to each of us. Maybe actually, if you've been in scenarios where you haven't agreed with people politically, and how have you solved those scenarios? How have you worked through that? I would love to know, whether workplace, family members, friends, even partners. That would be great. And do you think Taylor Swift and Bryony Mahomes are just friends because of the Chiefs link between the husband and the boyfriend? So they're doing the whole friendliness for PR purposes and the politeness that comes around with being in a relationship with someone in that position? Or do you think their friendship is more than that? Because I know for Brandon and I, one thing which we agreed very early in our relationship is that we want to learn, change and grow together. So we do learn everything together. So both of us have gone more left-leaning as time has gone on. People always are like, oh, Brady, you're the one that made him go vegan because you're a woman and women always do that. It's like, no, I told him that was what I wanted to do. And then he learned about it. He did his own research on it and he was like, no, I want to as well. Boom. See what you mean? But again, I know my relationship is weird, but I'm weird. I think that you know that by now. If you did make it all the way to the end of the video, please leave this emoji with the note with a little heart on it, because I really do want to think that people approach all conversations from a place of love for progress and trying to make sure that we keep each other's humanity in mind, because all of us tend to be struggling, especially at the moment. I've seen people say how bad their mental health is all over the show, so I really do want to try and provide a little hope, a little bit of a way forward if I can. And a great way to actually make that way forward is to contact your representatives, because they're meant to be working for you. As a reminder, let them know exactly where you stand on things and why you will or will not be voting for them. Special thanks to all of my patrons for voting on this topic.